Welcome to our channel, Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. From daring jewel heists to mysterious legends, every video uncovers the secrets hidden in the shadows. Stay with us, because here, every crime tells a story. Every old house carries secrets, but some are darker than anyone could imagine. In a quiet neighborhood, a home stood for years hiding a truth buried beneath its own floors. Families lived above it, never knowing what horrors lay just a few inches below their feet. It began with whispers, strange disappearances, and suspicions that led nowhere, until one shocking discovery shattered the silence. In this video, we uncover the chilling case of what investigators found beneath the floorboards and how it revealed the dark secrets that turned an ordinary house into the scene of unthinkable crimes. The town of Hollow Creek had always seemed quiet. Streets curved gently between rows of wooden houses, their porches sagging slightly with age. The sound of children playing in backyards carried through the air in summer, and in winter, smoke curled from chimneys like something out of a postcard. It was the kind of place where people thought they knew their neighbors, where everyone felt safe enough to leave doors unlocked and bikes lying on the lawn. But the summer of 1998 shattered that image forever, when a house on Maple Street revealed horrors no one could have imagined. At the center of the story was an old house, one that had stood for nearly a century. Its paint was peeling, its shutters hung crooked, and its floorboards creaked with every step. Most people passed it without much thought. The owner, a middle-aged man named Harold Whitman, lived alone. He was quiet, kept to himself, and rarely spoke to anyone beyond the occasional nod. Neighbors described him as harmless, maybe strange, but not dangerous. They were wrong. It began when a girl named Rachel Turner went missing. She was only 16, known for her bright smile and kind nature. One evening, she left her friend's house just a few blocks away and never made it home. Her parents grew frantic, calling the police within hours. Flyers went up, search parties combed the woods, and the entire community banded together. But days passed with no sign of her. Detectives interviewed everyone, checking every corner of Hollow Creek. When they reached Harold's house, he answered the door calmly. His clothes were tidy, his voice even, his answers polite. He claimed he had been home reading that night. They looked around his living room, which smelled faintly of old wood and dust, but saw nothing unusual. With no evidence, they moved on. Weeks passed. Rachel's disappearance was joined by another. A young woman named Claire, 19 years old, vanished after leaving her job at the diner. She never arrived home. Once again, the police searched everywhere. Once again, neighbors whispered about shadows in their small town. Still, Harold's name never came up as anything more than background. He remained quiet, mowing his lawn occasionally, walking to the store, always blending into the routine of life in Hollow Creek. No one suspected that beneath the worn floorboards of his house lay secrets darker than anyone could imagine. The break came months later when a plumber was called to Harold's home. Harold complained of a foul smell seeping through the floor. The plumber, working in the crawl space, noticed something odd. Patches of soil freshly disturbed, boards nailed hastily back into place. The smell was unmistakable. He called the police. Immediately, what followed would change Hollow Creek forever. Detectives pried open the floorboards, shining their flashlights into the darkness below. The beam caught on something pale. At first, they thought it was old wood, but as they reached further, the truth revealed itself. Buried shallowly in the dirt were bones, human bones. The house was sealed off within hours. Neighbors stood in shock behind police tape as officers carried evidence bags out of the house. The quiet man they had trusted, the man they had ignored, was led out in handcuffs, his face expressionless. Reporters arrived, their cameras flashing. The whispers in Hollow Creek turned into gasps of horror. As investigators dug deeper, more bodies were found. each one carefully hidden beneath the floor, each one representing a life stolen. Among them were Rachel and Claire. Alongside their remains were scraps of clothing, jewelry, and small belongings that confirmed their identities. Forensic teams worked for days, cataloging everything. Detectives confronted Harold. He sat in the interrogation room, calm as ever, his eyes unblinking. When asked why, he said little. He shrugged, muttering that the house kept secrets well. His lack of emotion chilled the officers questioning him. They pressed harder, but Harold never gave them the satisfaction of an explanation. Word spread quickly. Hollow Creek, once thought safe and ordinary, was now the site of one of the most shocking discoveries in the state's history. People who had lived near Harold for years couldn't believe it. Parents clutched their children tighter. Neighbors replayed every moment they had seen him, wondering how they had never guessed what lurked beneath his floor. For the families of the victims, the discovery was both devastating and relieving. They finally knew what had happened, but the truth was worse than any nightmare. Rachel's mother clutched her daughter's necklace, recovered from the crawl space, and wept. Claire's father stood silently, his jaw tight, as he watched officers carry boxes of evidence away. But the story didn't end with those first discoveries. As police searched further, they uncovered journals hidden in Harold's bedroom. The pages were filled with chilling notes, names, dates, observations about women in town. It became clear that Harold had been planning and carrying out his crimes for years. He had watched, waited, and chosen his victims carefully. The floorboards had hidden more than just bodies. They had hidden a predator who lived in plain sight. The discovery inside Harold Whitman's house turned Hollow Creek into a place of fear and sorrow. News vans crowded Maple Street, reporters standing before cameras with the old house behind them. People who had once waved to Harold on his walks now whispered about how close they had lived to a monster. Parents told their children never to go near strangers, even ones they thought they knew. Inside the police station, detectives pieced together the puzzle. The journals found in Harold's bedroom were filled with cryptic notes. Dates were listed alongside first names. Some were crossed out, others circled. One entry read, "She walks home the same way every night, easy to follow." Another said, "The boards hold more secrets than anyone knows." The handwriting was neat, deliberate, almost as if he had been documenting his crimes like a collector keeping records. Investigators feared that the bodies of Rachel and Claire might not be the only ones. The soil beneath the floor was dug carefully, inch by inch, as forensic experts searched for remains. The work was slow, but each day brought grim discoveries. By the end of the week, they had uncovered bones belonging to 4 different women, families. From surrounding towns came forward, asking to identify jewelry, scraps of fabric, and personal items. A silver bracelet was matched to a girl who had disappeared from a neighboring county 3 years earlier. A hair clip was recognized by a grieving father whose daughter vanished on her way to a friend's house. The scope of Harold's crimes was larger than anyone could have imagined. When confronted with the evidence, Harold sat silently. He neither admitted nor denied anything. He simply stared at the table, tapping his fingers against the wood as if the truth meant nothing to him. Detectives grew frustrated, raising their voices, slamming the journals in front of him, reading aloud the entries. Still, he remained silent. His calm unnerved even the most experienced officers. The town demanded answers. Vigils were held, candles glowing in the night as names of the missing were read aloud. Families clutched photos of their daughters, praying for closure. The mayor gave a statement, his voice trembling as he said, "We thought we knew this town. We thought we knew our neighbors. But evil lived among us, and we did not see it." The trial preparations began. Prosecutors gathered evidence carefully, knowing they needed to build an airtight case. The floorboards themselves became a centerpiece of the investigation. Large sections were removed and taken to the forensic lab, where scientists scraped, fibers, and soil samples. Beneath the wood were traces of blood too old to be seen by the eye, but revealed under special lights. Neighbors testified about strange smells from the house over the years. Some admitted they thought it was just rotting wood. Others recalled hearing noises, faint thumps, dragging sounds, but never investigated further. A delivery driver said he always felt uneasy near Harold's porch, though he never knew why. For the families, each new detail was another wound. Rachel's mother fainted when she learned how long her daughter's body had been hidden beneath the very floors Harold walked on daily. Claire's brother clenched his fists when he heard the journals describe his sister's walk home. He wrote about her like she was nothing, he said bitterly. The prosecution worked to show the jury the pattern. Harold stalked his victims, chose moments when they were alone, and lured or forced them into his home. Once there, the floorboards became their tomb. The journals revealed his mind, cold and meticulous. The evidence from the crawl space revealed his actions. Together they painted a picture of deliberate evil. The defense had little to offer. They argued that the journals could have been fiction, that the remains could not all be tied directly to Harold. But the mountain of evidence was undeniable. The diaries, the belongings, the bones, the blood, they all pointed to him. As the trial began, the courtroom was filled with reporters and grieving families. Harold sat at the defense table expressionless. He never looked at the families, never reacted to the evidence shown. When the prosecutor held up a necklace belonging to one of the victims, the room fell silent. Mothers sobbed, fathers clenched. Their jaws, jurors shook their heads. Still, Harold did not move. Witness after witness testified. A former co-worker described Harold as quiet but strange, always watching young women. A store clerk said he remembered Harold buying large nails and wooden boards years ago, supplies later used to seal his floor. A neighbor admitted she once saw him carrying a heavy bag into the house late at night, but at the time thought nothing of it. The survivors' families gave emotional statements. They spoke of birthdays missed, of empty chairs at dinner tables, of futures stolen. Rachel's father held her necklace tightly in his hand as he told the jury, "That monster walked on top of her every day, as if she was nothing. But she was my everything." His words brought tears to many in the room. The trial stretched for weeks, each day filled with more shocking revelations. Forensic experts described how the floorboards had preserved evidence, how even dust trapped in the cracks held traces of the victims. One expert explained how fibers from Rachel's shirt were found embedded in the wood itself. The detail was so precise it left no doubt. The defense tried to argue insanity, painting Harold as unstable, detached from reality, but his journals told a different story. A man fully aware of his actions, carefully documenting them, hiding them. The jury saw through the defense quickly. When the verdict finally came, the tension in the room was unbearable. The foreman stood, his voice steady, and declared Harold Whitman guilty on all counts of murder. Gasps filled the courtroom. Families wept openly, holding each other tightly. The judge sentenced Harold to life in prison without parole, his voice stern as he said, "Your house was a coffin for innocence. Now you will spend the rest of your life behind your own bars." Harold's reaction was chilling. He simply smirked, faintly, as if even in defeat he still held onto some secret. The families stared at him in disgust, refusing to give him the satisfaction of their anger. The house on Maple Street was torn down weeks later. The community could not bear to see it standing, could not bear to pass the place that had hidden so much horror. In its place, a small garden was planted, with flowers blooming where floorboards once creaked. A plaque was placed in the center, reading, "In memory of those lost. May we never forget." Life in Hollow Creek changed forever after Harold Whitman's conviction. The town that had once been known for its quiet streets and friendly neighbors was now remembered as the place where a house hid unspeakable crimes beneath its floorboards. Families who had lived there for generations looked at their town differently. The innocence was gone, replaced by a constant reminder that evil had lived right among them. The media attention lingered for years. Documentaries were filmed, journalists returned to interview the families, and crime writers dug through the details. People across the nation asked the same question. How could no one have known? How could a man hide so many lives beneath his home without anyone suspecting? The answer haunted Hollow Creek. Neighbors replayed memories over and over. The faint smells, the strange noises, the way Harold always kept to himself. Some admitted they had felt uneasy but brushed it off. Others confessed they simply never believed something so monstrous could happen in their small town. The guilt lingered, even though they hadn't known. For the families, grief turned into a lifelong wound. Rachel's mother never stopped wearing her daughter's necklace. Claire's father visited the memorial garden every week, kneeling by the flowers in silence. Parents of other victims tried to rebuild their lives, but birthdays, graduations, weddings, all the moments their children should have lived, were now painful reminders of what had been stolen. Emma Lewis, whose sister had been one of Harold's earliest victims, became an activist. She spoke publicly about missing persons, urging people to pay attention to signs, to never dismiss unusual behavior. If someone makes you uneasy, don't ignore it, she said at a gathering. We ignored the signs, and because of that, we lost them. Her words resonated with families across the country. The police officers who worked the case carried it with them for the rest of their careers. One detective admitted years later that Harold's journals still haunted him. He wrote as if he was proud, the detective said, like he was keeping trophies, not just of their belongings, but of the fear he caused. Another officer said he never walked into an old house again without thinking of floorboards, of what might lie beneath. In prison, Harold remained the same, quiet, detached, emotionless. He never confessed fully, never offered an apology. When asked by prison staff why he did it, he shrugged and said, "It was easy. The house hid everything." He died years later, still holding on to his secrets, never giving closure to families who suspected there were more victims than the ones identified. But even without his confession, the truth was clear. The evidence told the story, and the floorboards revealed what he tried to hide. The community refused to let him define them. Instead, they defined themselves by resilience, by memory, and by honoring the lives taken. The memorial garden grew beautiful with each passing year. In spring, tulips bloomed where the old living room once stood. In summer, sunflowers reached toward the sky, bright against the memory of darkness. On the anniversary of the discovery, the town gathered there. Families lit candles. Children sang softly, and names of the victims were read aloud. Each year, the same words were spoken. We remember. We will always remember. The story of Hollow Creek became more than a crime story. It became a lesson taught in schools, a warning in safety workshops, a case study for detectives. It reminded everyone that evil can hide in the ordinary, that silence and secrecy can be as dangerous as violence itself. Years later, people who had grown up in Hollow Creek still told the story to their children. They spoke of Harold Whitman, the quiet neighbor who no one suspected, and the dark secrets buried beneath his floor. They told it not to frighten, but to remind the next generation to stay alert, to speak up, to never ignore their instincts. For the survivors' families, time softened nothing. The pain remained sharp, though it was tempered by the knowledge that Harold was gone and justice had been served. They clung to memories of their loved ones, the laughter, the smiles, the ordinary moments stolen from them. In their hearts, they carried them forward, refusing to let Harold's crimes erase their lives. The garden stood as a symbol, not just of loss, but of resilience. Where once floorboards creaked over hidden graves, flowers now bloomed in open light. The town of Hollow Creek, scarred forever, learned to live again, but no one ever forgot. And so, the story of the dark secrets beneath the floorboards remained, a chilling reminder that monsters do not always live in the shadows. Sometimes, they live right beside us, hidden in plain sight until the truth breaks free and the silence is finally shattered. Steady, haunting tone. You've been watching Crime Loom. If this story shook you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel for more true crime mysteries. In Hollow Creek, the truth was buried deep, but the floorboards could not hide it forever.